Festival Hall look like a burglar has pulled out every drawer in the house during a very hurried theft. Are you filming this? Because this image is copyrighted.
It's fine. It's
cool.
Good. It's looking good.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that's kind of architecturally. I want to now pull apart acoustics. Anybody got any kind of interest in acoustics? Does anyone like classical music? No?
Yeah, no, I've been to the proms.
Yeah, you've been to the proms?
Yes.
Fab, I've been to the proms. They're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't really like classical music,
No.
but I didn't before I started working here. So I'm going to start pulling apart acoustics for you within this whole room. Hope Bagnall was the acoustician who originally designed this room, and he wanted a very dry sound, or a very pure sound, meaning that from what came out into the room, you got what you got, and there was no resonance, there was no reverb. And on opening night, he walked out into the middle of the stage, and he clapped his hands, and he got this. And he said, perfect. Now, after the building settled into its foundations after a couple of years, and all the materials kind of got into the place that they wanted to sit in, the orchestras very quickly started to complain. And the reason why they were complaining is because all of the materials that were used in the construction of this room were very soft, and they were very, very absorbent. And from one side of the orchestra to the other side of the orchestra on the stage, they could not hear what each other was playing, because all of the sound was going out into the room, it was hitting all of the soft materials, and it was disappearing into the walls. Very boring, I know. However, we have undergone 2 refurbishments, and luckily for you, I've only got a short amount of time, so I'll skip some of them, but I'll get to the really cool ones. We undergone 2 refurbs. One happened in the 60s, I won't go into that. The other one happened when we closed this entire building in 2005 for 2 whole years, and this entire hall was completely taken apart, and it was put back together again. And that was to afford us better acoustics. So now we can walk into a room and we get resonance much like this. You get that?
Yep.
And that's so that we can afford a pin drop moment during a violin concerto or a piano concerto, especially when you have a soloist standing on stage.
So how was that done?
How was that done?
Wood panel.
So yeah, well, that was one of them. The first thing we did was we lifted up all the carpet. This whole auditorium used to be carpeted. The same carpet that's sitting outside. It's a very famous carpet. So that carpet was taken up, and luckily there was this parquet wood flooring. You can see just in front of the stage there's some blue slate. That's not there to look pretty, it's there because it's highly reflective. So any sound that comes off the stage hits that blue slate and bounces straight out into the room. Similarly, the 3 sails, which you can see at the moment are currently vertical and up into the ceiling, they can be dropped and they can be pitched to absolutely any single angle, and they are so accurate that the production crew can put them within half a millimetre of where they want them, meaning that any orchestra or any soloist or any conductor can basically bounce the sound in the room any way they want and aim in a particular direction. Similarly, the seats that you're putting on used to have fabric on the underside, no longer. And the reason for that is this is French elm. They wanted to use English elm, which is the wood that was originally used during the original construction of this hall. But in the kind of mid-noughties, they couldn't use English elm because of
Dutch elm disease.
Dutch elm disease. So they had to go to France to get all of their wood. Luckily, French elm was a lot harder than English elm. So when they were putting it on the underside of the chair, they also designed it and angled it in such a way so that does anyone here play an instrument? Yes? So imagine you walk out on stage, much like it is now, completely empty, but looking a lot more pretty. You walk out onto stage and you tune your instrument to the room. You get your violin and you make it sound exactly like you want your violin to sound in that room. And then you go off into your dressing room, which we'll have a look at in a bit. You go off into your dressing room and then you come out 2 hours later and suddenly 3,000 people have arrived. You start playing, your violin now sounds completely different because you've just put 3,000 bodies in the room. Not here. The chairs are designed in such a way that the hall behaves in exactly the same way when it's empty as it does when it's full. That is the face that I'm looking for, because that means that you were impressed.
Yeah, a lot.
Secondly, talking about wood. Can you see these walls with the wooden slats that are running along here? We call these the Copenhagen walls. That is originally, yes?
Yep.
Now, that means there's a gap between each piece of wood. There is a second gap in behind those slats. And every single one of those pieces of wood was individually removed during the major refurbishment, and a single piece, square centimetre thick, of French elm was inserted behind each one of those. So now the effect is the sound travels into the gap between each piece of wood, hits the hardwood hidden behind, and bounces it straight back out into the room. No one ever notices that, but that single piece of engineering completely revolutionised how the acoustics behave in this room. Similarly, the red padded walls, which you can see just behind the side stalls, top and bottom, they were originally stuffed with horsehair. They were taken out, horsehair was removed, and they've now been filled with a kind of hard foam composite, which is highly reflective. So when the sound hits those padded walls, it bounces back out into the room. What else acoustically can I tell you? The ceiling, yep. So the whole building's designed to look like a cruise ship because the height of luxury during the late 40s, early 50s was cruise liners. So it's one of the elements, which is why it looks like a wave motion. But it's also a very clever design because it hides all of our, not our working lights, but our stage lights. They're all hidden in the waves. So when the concert's on, you get no light from the ceiling and all the lights are hidden pointing at the stage. Do you want to know a really fun fact?
Yes, please.
Okay. So you can see the ceiling and you can see the working lights at the moment. And then you can see some large black holes, which are actually filled with other lights. Then you can see some small black holes, yes? There's nothing in them at the moment, but there used to be. Essentially, because there was no resonance in this room originally, during the 60s, they installed an ARS, which is an artificial resonance system. What they did was they drilled these holes, and then on top of the holes they had these hollow metal tubes, which are all varying different degrees of length. Now, depending on which angle the sound waves hit that hole and went into the tube, it would bounce up the tube. And on the top of all the tubes was either a small microphone or a small speaker. And the microphones would pick up the sound, send them via cables to a room at the back of this hall over there, and then that room would send them all the way back out into the holes with the speakers with the tubes on top. And then that would pump it out. And it was designed to be completely random. And the reason for that is it was to give you a false echo, an idea of a false echo within this room. I know. And for a while, he's a really cool guy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which is why I know so much about the ceiling in this building. Yay, so we're going to move backstage in a minute. I'm just going to think. I can't ignore the stage. Obviously, it's on 11 pneumatic lifts. Which is great now because we can just push a button and the stage goes which is really great. Before, it used to have to all be hand cranked, which just took ages. And
Before 2007, like, or
2005, 2007.
Yeah, okay.
So we reopened in 2007. I'll tell you two more things. One, the organ. You can't ignore the organ. It's the second largest pipe organ in the world. Would anyone like to hazard a guess at how many pipes are in the pipe organ at the Royal Festival Hall?
179.
179. Anybody else?
144.
144. 200. 180. 500. Anyone else? No? We're good. You were the closest.
Wow.
Which means I might buy you a gin and tonic if I come to the bar a little later. There is exactly 7,866 pipes.
Get out.
Second largest pipe organ. Seattle. Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah. I know. There's bigger organs, but this one's a pipe organ. Yeah, 7,866. It was installed in 1954 by a company named Harrison Harrison, and when we closed the building in 2005, the entire organ was removed, and it underwent a 7-year, multi-million-pound refurbishment, and only reopened in the early part of last year.
How many people can play it?
Just one. Can you see the kind of brownish console just there, just through the lighting rig, which isn't normally there? Yeah, Neil Young played it on a recording of Like a Hurricane back in the 80s, which is the only time I have ever liked the organ. Apart from that, I don't like the sound of the organ. It's just like, wah, 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 wah. It's like a really bad version of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I'll tell you two more things, because I said I was going to do two more things, but then I've remembered I forgot to tell you about the Royal Box, which isn't called the Royal Box, it's actually called the Ceremonial Box, or what we call the Goodman Box. You can buy a seat for absolutely anywhere in this auditorium. Anywhere apart from that box. You can only sit in that box if you were invited to do so, or if you work here and you want to impress a girl and take her out on a date. And then security are like, "Yo, Neil, what you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry guys, let's go." So anyway, you can only sit there if you're invited to do so by us. You'll notice that it's only slightly angled and a bit flat because you're there to be seen and not to actually watch the show. However, you will notice around the royal crest there is a slight indentation. Can you see that?
Yep.
That is because the crest is actually on a spin. We can make it disappear. We're only supposed to display the royal crest when the royals are sitting in the box. When they are not here on any other night, we have to spin it round, and it's just a completely flat wall. However, the only way we can spin that round is someone has to stand down here with a really long stick and poke it, yeah? Or stand on the balcony, and if you're tall enough, reach up and spin it round. It's a health and safety nightmare, so we just leave it on display all of the time. I know, these are the ridiculous things. I'm going to take you backstage in a second, but I want to tell you one really quick story, which is one of my favourite stories. Basically, this whole building is not just about the architecture, it's not just about the acoustics, it's very much about the people. We never close. We only close for one day a year, which is Christmas Day. Apart from that, we open at 10 o'clock in the morning and we close at 11 o'clock at night. And our doors, there's 5 of them downstairs, are always open. Anybody and everybody can walk into this building, no matter who you are, and on every single day of the year experience some kind of art for free. Whether that's music, visual, dance, theatre, doesn't matter. It's here, it's free. We are the largest art centre in Europe. We occupy a 21-acre site geographically. And we also have ourselves a mission, which is 51% of our artistic programming on a yearly basis is entirely free.
Fantastic.
And we achieve that every single year. Now, the people, can you see this block of seats? This is the front stalls, this is the middle block. Can you see the front row? Can you see the chair in the corner of the front row, just down there? That is seat A27. It has a name on it. You can't really see. Can you see some of the chairs have names on them? Mm-hmm. Yeah? So it has a name on it. Her name's Yvonne Pegler. Don't worry, this story has a happy ending. Yvonne is a total legend. She's a living legend. Her dad was a part of the design team who designed the curtains that you can see hanging behind the boxes. Yes?
Yeah.
And one day, when she was about 6 years old, she was annoying her mother. She was just getting all up in her hair. So her dad said, look, I'm going to give you some peace and quiet. I'm going to take Yvonne out for the night. You do whatever you want to do. So Yvonne and her dad came out, and they came right here to the Royal Festival Hall because he'd done a thing and wanted to impress his 6-year-old daughter. So they sat down and they watched the classical concerts. Sad to say, a couple of years later, Yvonne's dad died. And then Yvonne started visiting here because she had a very tangible way of remembering it. She had this thing. Now, no word of a lie. If you don't know classical music, this is what happens. We have classical season. Classical season starts in September and finishes at the end of June. And it is 4 nights a week. Yvonne has attended every single classical concert played in this hall 4 nights a week from September through to the end of June since 1957.
Wow.
And I'm going to show you a physical artifact of that. And to prove to you that I am not lying. She sits in that chair, and she has always paid for it. She always sits in the same place. She's an amazing woman. How cool is that?
That is amazing. That is.
I know. Everyone was like,
so lovely.
I want to go back to the pub. I don't want to listen to some random Irish guy tell me
that is so
rubbish
lovely.
stories. Right, let's go backstage because I got you for about another 10 minutes.